The weirdest thing happened. I got my Spanish passport last week. That's the topic of my most recent episode, episode 121. Afterwards, I went to the gym, did some work, and ate some protein. Had a normal day, in other words. Later that evening, I put a picture of my new passport up on Instagram. The caption was, "Soy español, por fin. Viva España." Little did I know, Instagram was, in my case, automatically posting my pictures to Threads as well. In case you're not paying attention, Threads app is an imitation of Twitter, produced by the Meta conglomerate, meaning Insta is constantly trying to get you to use it. I had downloaded it once a couple of years ago and quickly gotten bored, so I was quite surprised when Instagram started sending me notifications about all the comments I was getting on Threads. I had to re-download the app to check them, but my passport photo was quite popular over there, with 700 likes and 500 plus comments. Reading the feedback I had gotten, I found there were two basic types of comments. Short ones saying enhorabuena, or congratulations if you prefer, and longer ones explaining that actually I am not Spanish at all. My lawyer had mentioned this previously and I did not believe him. He said that some people would want to make a big deal out of the distinction between Spaniards by birth and nationalized Spaniards. Turns out he was right. Dozens of people, complete strangers on an app I don't use, came out to tell me that by their criteria I'm still a foreigner. I guess they have a sort of ethnic understanding of what being Spanish means. This was an unexpected, to say the least, introduction to being Spanish. Not the welcome to Spanishness that I was hoping for, and I should say that probably 3/4 of the comments were positive, but still, it was a lot of negativity. In any case, I don't put too much stock in the opinions of random weirdos online. I get along with all sorts of people in face-to-face interactions. It's like Mike Tyson says, social media made y'all way too comfortable with disrespecting people and not getting punched in the face for it. I have more about my theory that social media is ruining society in episode 117, Performing for the Algorithm. Anyway, the people who listen to this podcast are not complete strangers, and I have quite a bit of feedback and questions that I would like to get to. Rather than having a long shout out at the beginning of the next episode, I figured I would do it all in one place. So this is Mr. Chorizo's Mailbag. Hey everybody, it's Daniel. Welcome back to Spain to Go, the best podcast in the entire multiverse for all things Spain. This is episode 122, and we're calling it Mr. Chorizo's Mailbag. I hope you are having a great day out there, wherever you are. Today, I just wanted to answer some reader questions and respond to some feedback from, readers, listeners, and donors to the blog. If you have anything you want to say, it's really easy to find me. You could go to expatmadrid.com, find the About page there, and there's a contact form at the bottom of the About page. Also, expatmadrid.com/donate has an easy contact form for donors. You could donate some money and send me your questions about life in Spain, etc. expatmadrid.com/donate. I'm also on Instagram. You could comment on YouTube, etc. There are a lot of ways to find me. So thank you very much. Let's get to the listener feedback. First up, Karen likes my voice. I got a long comment recently from Karen, who also made a donation. This is what she says. Hi, Daniel. In this age of content overload, your podcast holds my attention completely. Your voice, with a capital V, is compelling, and your writing is incredibly thoughtful, well-researched, and actually nuanced. Thanks so much for what you do. In her email, Karen further explains that she spent years producing podcasts for NPR and originally found my monotone monologues to be boring, but upon further consideration finds what I'm doing to be quite compelling. I don't even skip your promo bits, she says. Obviously, I am flattered. One of the reasons I delayed for years in making a podcast is that I figured I would just sound like one of those people hosting a late night jazz show on your local NPR affiliate. My parents used to listen to that stuff, and I thought it was mind-numbing. So rather than bore people in that way, I decided not to throw my hat into the podcasting ring. Thanks to my friend Lily for sitting me down in front of a mic and finally making me do it. Lily has a podcast of her own. I think if you look for Fly with Lily podcast, you can find it. Most of what she does is in Chinese because Lily is from Taiwan. But she's got quite a story and she does some things in English. Check out Fly with Lily on Spotify and you should find her. Anyway, my first several dozen episodes were also recorded mostly in late afternoon when I was very tired. That just made me sound even more monotone. Now I'm trying to record in the mornings while I'm still caffeinated and to speak a bit faster. Anyway, thanks for listening and thanks to Karen for her donation. Moving on. Ana hates my Spanish accent. Some randomer on Instagram, she might also listen to the podcast, commented on my Spanish passport that, quote, maybe it's time to work on your accent in Spanish. I have complex feelings about this. Accent is strongly tied to identity, and I made an effort to drop my cowboyish Southwest U.S. accent when I moved to Madrid and started teaching English. These days, I don't exactly regret doing that, but I do regret giving in to the sorts of pressures that made me think I had to. Thing is, I was young and getting told off by a few British coworkers around the language school for not speaking the Queen's English affected 22-year-old Mr. Chorizo more than I would now like to admit. So I'm a bit touchy about accents. What problem Anna has with my accent in Spanish is also a mystery to me because, to be perfectly honest, I don't hear my own accent much. So I guess if Anna doesn't want to listen to me, she can probably find something else to do with her time. I'm not sure what to say. I would imagine that not hearing your own accent is a large part of how accents work, but that is another topic. Also, on a more positive note, I got this from Stephen, who is Irish and living in Tenerife. You should become an audio book or meditation podcast reader. Your voice and speaking cadence is incredibly relaxing. Thanks, Stephen. If only they knew how much I tried to sound less relaxing. Moving on, Darren wants to know why I became Spanish. Over on Facebook, Darren wants to know why I decided to get Spanish nationality. A lot of people have asked this, actually, because they've been here for 10 or 20 years, and they haven't really considered going through the whole nationality process. While it is true that in theory a long-term residence permit gets you most of the same benefits as Spanish nationality, I always wanted to go all in on Spanishness. For one thing, because I just can't stand renewing my residence card every few years. You have to start looking for an appointment with immigration 6 months before your old card expires. You have to refresh some horrible government website 10,000 times, go in for fingerprinting, and finally wait 45 days for your new card. The DNI process I just went through makes it clear that they can print a card in 5 minutes. So what's the purpose of the 45-day wait exactly? It might be psychological. All I know is that I always felt like something of a second-class citizen going through that. Another reason I fought for Spanish nationality is that it makes my wife Morena's life easier, at least in theory. If she is married to a Spaniard, she can get nationality faster, which will make travel a lot simpler for her. Indian passports are not among the world's strongest, so for her we've had to do things like go to Madrid for an interview at the U.S. Embassy, just so she can get a tourist visa for a 3-day conference in Vegas. And getting the UK visa is even worse. It's time-consuming and expensive. Finally, I'm looking forward to using my Spanish nationality in order to vote against Pedro Sanchez. I am not super political, but being unable to vote was annoying for the last decade or so. Moving on, Nancy and Glenn are coming to Spain. Here is another comment from over on my donation page, expatmadrid.com/donate, by the way, in case you have forgotten already. Nancy says, I have been wanting to move there for years. Now Glenn is convinced as well, but for now we'll spend 88 days there starting mid-January, gadding about as usual, flying out of Barcelona April something. Love to buy you a drink. Our oldest son, a ginger, is your age, not as rye. Thanks a lot, Nancy and Glenn, for your donation, also for donating multiple times over the past few years. Indeed, there is nothing stopping one from making frequent donations at expatmadrid.com/donate. Just saying. I am also glad you have a ginger son. Growing up ginger isn't easy, or at least it wasn't where I grew up. At least I got out of it with a decent sense of humor about the whole thing. You say our oldest son, a ginger, is your age, not as rye. That is W-R-Y, rye, which is a word I have never really used, but in the dictionary it says using or expressing dry, especially mocking humor. I suppose that describes me pretty well. So thank you for the compliment on my humor. We'll be talking a bit more about humor later on because I've gotten several comments on my humor for some reason. Anyway, at this point, I'm not even sure I'm a ginger anymore. It seems like my hair has just turned into this boring no color. I don't have that much of it either. My beard is mostly ginger with a few bits of white in it. Here in Spain, a lot of people would just call me Rubio, but that is kind of a long story. Morena is Morena because of her dark hair as well as her dark skin. Rubio is something similar in that I think it refers to the complexion and not just the hair color. Anyway, plenty of people have called me Rubio here in Spain. That's just the way it works. I have an article on the web about stereotypes regarding gingers. It is called Do Gingers Have Souls? There was a South Park thing about it, years ago. And by all means, anyone who wants to have coffee, alcohol-free beer, or sparkling water with me can hit me up in any of the many places online, here on the contact form, on Instagram, etc. Sorry, the contact form is at expatmadrid.com/about, and all the way down at the bottom of that page there is a contact form. You also probably have my email if you have subscribed to email notifications about this podcast, which you should, also on expatmadrid.com. You can just respond to one of my emails if you're going to be in town, or the blog has comments on every post. Lots of ways to get in touch. So yes, I am happy to meet people, happy to meet Nancy and Glenn. Just let me know, a couple of weeks before you're going to be in town. And if I am around, I will be happy to meet up. Next question. Jim wants to play Dungeons and Dragons. I mentioned Jim, also known as Seamus, on my previous episode as a donor and frequent YouTube commenter. But it turns out he had also written to me a while ago to ask about Dungeons and Dragons. Honestly, I know nothing about Dungeons and Dragons, but there are a lot of shops related to that constellation of subcultures down in the Arc de Triomphe area here in Barcelona. Incidentally, this is right on the edge of Barcelona's Chinatown. That's where the anime kids hang out, and also they have these shops for comic books, board games, etc. About Barcelona Chinatown, it's not an official Chinatown like in London or something, but there is certainly an area around Arc de Triomphe with a lot of Chinese businesses. A couple of my favorite restaurants are down there. Yue Lai is one, and Oro de Mar. I think it's called Oro de Mar. I don't know. It seems to have two names. It's Oro de Mar or it is Wenju Dos. Wenju, Wenzhou, Dos, which is the number 2. Wenju 2. Sure. I don't know why it has two names, but apparently it does. Wenju is some Chinese thing. Either way, that is at Ali Bay 71, Carrer de Ali Bay 71. That's one of the better Chinese restaurants in town for cheap and badly presented Chinese food that's actually pretty good. It's usually full of Chinese teenagers eating this giant bowl of ramen soup, which costs 5 or 6 euros, I think. I don't know. I don't really eat it, so I don't know the price, but it's very cheap and pretty good for what you're paying. Anyway, that has nothing to do with Jim's question, but that's a little bit about Barcelona's Chinatown. Other than that, about Dungeons and Dragons, I know it's around. If you spend some time on Google or on meetup.com, I'm sure you'll find something. I know a guy, or I used to know a guy down in Madrid who ran sessions bilingually, I think. It's out there. I'm sure you can find it. So thank you, Jim, for your donation and for all of the comments. Here's one from YouTube. Leaving the Pier wants to teach English. I assume this is some sort of pseudonym. Leaving the Pier says, "Hello, Daniel. I love your podcast and content, and especially the humor. Do you think a person can still earn a wage to cover basic needs for a single person by teaching English in Spain these days?" I answered this on YouTube, and my answer here is about the same. It really depends on what you mean by basic needs. I was teaching English down in Madrid from 2005 to 2015. My salary at that time was between 1,000 and 1,500 euros per month, and usually zero in summer, actually. Just no work to do in summer. My rented room plus bills cost between 250 and 300 euros. So with that, I could do basic or a bit beyond basic. These days, renting a room is going to be a lot more than that, maybe double, and food is more expensive as well. As far as I can tell, salaries have not improved. In any case, I would get on Facebook and find some English teacher groups to see what they're saying. Maybe I'm missing something, but there are definitely people teaching English, so I guess there is the possibility of living some sort of basic lifestyle while doing it. So my full answer is maybe you can cover your basic needs as a single person, especially if your needs are very basic. I have a longer article about making a living as an English teacher over on the blog. It might be somewhat out of date. Anyway, there certainly are people making it work, but I don't know if it's as big a market as it used to be. Additionally, the big advice I would have is to make a backup plan as well. I almost got stuck in English teaching forever, and some people never managed to escape. If you have a secondary, better career option, you will save yourself some trouble later on. Thank you very much for listening or watching. Let's talk about my famous sense of humor to wrap up here. I do not know why I suddenly got a barrage of messages referring to my sense of humor, but I did. My sense of humor mostly consists of trying to not take things too seriously. I know that sputtering along in self-righteous indignation in front of a camera is what people have gotten used to seeing these days. Well, that or selfie videos of people having screaming or crying fits while sitting in their cars. That also seems to be an important genre on TikTok. I'm also not on TikTok, but I see references to it. Anyway, maybe my sense of humor refers to the fact that I'm not doing any of that. I try to avoid being angry, self-righteous, and weird on here. Actually, I'm just trying to describe things that happen as honestly as I can and without the crutch of partisan slogans. As I've mentioned once or twice, I hate nothing more than when some podcaster who I'm listening to for, personal finance advice suddenly decides that they are public policy geniuses. They're solving the war in Ukraine. They're, lecturing you about who needs to get elected next time, etc. I think that's pretty exhausting. I'm just here for the personal finance, not for the political lectures. So I try not to do that. I don't think anything I say on here is a real knee slapper. Morena would perhaps like me to mention that I often display the sense of humor of a 10-year-old. The word would is one of my favorite jokes, and I really enjoy Louis C.K.'s stand-up bit about Phoenicians. Being from Phoenix makes it even funnier. I don't know, it's one of Louis C.K.'s specials. Maybe you've seen it, maybe you haven't. Other than that, as many people have pointed out, I'm just a relaxing guy speaking in a monotone with a terrible accent. Thanks to everybody for listening. I appreciate you. That is about all I've got for today. Shoutouts, as usual, to Raul over at biketourinspain.com, who will take care of all of your cycling tour needs. I have been on 2 of his tours, and they were a lot of fun. The route of Don Quixote was great down in La Mancha, and even better than the route of Don Quixote was my tour of Extremadura in Spain's Wild West. I have episodes about both of those. Why don't you just listen to Extremadura? It's episode 94. Or, if you really want to listen to Quixote, let me find that one too also. Episode 76, Route of Don Quixote. Episode 94, Extremadura Bike Tour. Both amazing experiences brought to you by Raul at biketourinspain.com. Make sure to use the correct address there, biketourinspain.com. There are a lot of other similar brands out there. biketourinspain.com. You could also sign up for a walking tour in one of many lovely locations around Spain or Europe with Walks Tours. They are at expatmadrid.com/walks. That is an affiliate link, so I get a small payout, kickback, if you will, if you sign up for something. I did the Alone in the Prado Museum tour last year, and I highly recommend it. That is expatmadrid.com/walks. Will take you directly to their site. You could also try a food tour with Devour Tours, started by my friend Lauren back in the day. They are at expatmadrid.com/devour. Devour, DEVOUR, expatmadrid.com/devour. They have food tours around Spain and also around Europe. I think they even have one in New York if you are there. A bit of final housekeeping. I was also recently in New York as well as Portland, Oregon. I saw the alleged war zone out in Portland, Oregon that our US president has been talking about. It was a hot topic at the time I was there. I haven't seen anything about it since. Anyway, that will be a future episode of the podcast, in several days, I guess. I'll sit down and record that. I also want to write about New York. It's kind of weird for me being from, the Wild West and then showing up in New York, which is so different. So that is coming soon, and I guess we're going to have some Spain-related stuff in the future also. The news recently is just pretty boring, so I don't have anything specific to say about that. I have Spanish lessons over on YouTube. Check out Learn Spanish with Daniel. Just put that into YouTube, Learn Spanish with Daniel. I will be making new videos soon over there, Learn Spanish with Daniel. All the episodes of the podcast are also there. If you like this podcast, please give me a star rating or a review on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, etc. That sort of thing helps a lot. You can subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can give me a thumbs up or leave a comment there as well. It all helps the algorithms to know that I am, popular or whatever, to the extent which I am popular. You can follow me on Instagram. You can make a donation, like I said, expatmadrid.com/donate. I hope you enjoy your week, whatever you are doing and wherever you are doing it. Until next time, hasta la próxima. Bye.